Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing for Thursday, June the 6th. I'm Tony Haggerty at ahaggerty10 on the X or the Twitter handle, and I'm joined today by Ryan McGinley at the Ryan McGinley. How are you, Ryan? You all right?
Things are good, yeah. Another day closer to both the Euros and Celtic coming back, but at least we've got plenty to talk about on the transfer front, at least. Yeah, just enjoying. I think I'm enjoying the break from football at this moment in time. I know it's all about the main thing that goes on next week with the Euros. Looking forward to that, encompassing everything, but also
Yeah.
looking forward to talking about transfers and the imminent return of Celtic. But yeah, enjoying the downtime just now. Enjoying doing some longer features on the website, and yeah, just anticipating next season and what Brendan Rodgers can serve up for us.
And indeed, today you guys will be doing some heavy lifting because we want your questions. So get your questions coming in. Myself and Ryan will endeavour to answer them as best we can, openly, honestly, hopefully humorously as well, Ryan. So get your questions coming into the comment
It's open
section,
mic night.
guys. Yeah, open mic day. Yeah, open all mics, isn't it, for the viewers, listeners, subscribers? So get them in, guys. Your questions, and we'll have a go at that. But first and foremost, we say thank you to our sponsors, MPH Boilers and Weissman. And if you didn't know, we've got exciting news from our sponsors, MPH Group, because they're opening a brand new kitchen showroom in Dunfermline, Fife, with a VIP Vegas themed launch weekend from June the 5th, 14th to the 16th, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. There'll be roulette games with instant win prizes like 10% off services, free boiler services, and a chance to enter a draw for even bigger prizes. And if you land in zero, you'll get entered into a draw for a 4-night stay in Las Vegas, complete with a helicopter tour. So don't miss out. RSVP now at www.launch.mph.group to secure your spot. Nice prize there, Ryan, going to Vegas in a helicopter tour. And we thank MPH Boilers and Weissman for their sponsorship of the pod. Now, Ryan, Paulo Bernardo will kick off with that. As you said in the headline, Paulo Bernardo gets set to become Celtic's first summer signing, and it could be at a cut price £3.5 million, Ryan. That's what's doing the rounds in Portugal and various media outlets. I think that's a Celtic will have won a watch if they can secure Paulo Bernardo's services in a permanent deal for £3.5 million.
Yeah, completely agree with everything that you've said. I think a lot of people will be quite happy with the fact that that fee has been reduced. I wonder what makes up for that in terms of the sell-on value of the player. I guess that's been heightened, or it's a hefty sell-on fee that's been inserted. I don't think they'll make the same mistake twice that they did with Jota. I think they even did that with Duke. Duke has got a hefty sell-on fee, and that was the season after Jota signed for Celtic. So I think they realise now the mistake that they made the first time. I was talking to Alan Morrison yesterday about that deal in particular, and he was saying that it caused internal grumblings within Benfica. The fact that that deal was allowed to happen for such a cheap price, and then Celtic made such a hefty profit. I know that Benfica made a profit on Jota too, but I think they'll be more streetwise now about their future
Yeah,
dealings. I think you maybe see a 30% sell on, or maybe even more for Bernardo. But that's something to worry about down the line. What matters now is the fact that it looks as if Paulo Bernardo is going to be a fully fledged Celtic player, a guy that seems to be so settled in where he is. I know he's on holiday just now with his partner, but I think he'll be buzzing to get back to Scotland soon enough and sign that contract. Seems as if everything's going the right way. £3.5 million pounds, about €4 million. That seems like such a bargain for a player that's really, stepped up in the big moments, and a player that's only just turned 22. He's only going to get better in the years to come, and thankfully, or so it seems, it looks as if those years to come are going to be at Celtic. So yeah, very excited about this deal.
and I think it's a player the manager rates very highly as well. I know he used him sparingly, but he did use him in the Champions League, and as you say, he contributed some good moments. We've spoken about that on the pods quite a lot. So I just think it's a cut price deal, and as you say, you worry about the sell-on fee further down the line, but if you have to invoke that sell-on fee, then basically he's done very well for Celtic, and he will be
Yeah,
getting sold for multi-million again. So I think it's all a win-win for Celtic if that's part of the deal.
Yeah, sorry to interject again, but it's this is now a reason for Celtic to up their transfer prices on players that are maybe going the other way and leaving the
Yeah,
club, especially if they've got a sell-on value. It's now time to increase the prices so that Celtic aren't getting done out of money that they deserve for nurturing a player, making a player better, and improving his value. It's a bit of a weird one because his value will be improved despite playing for, maybe in one of the instances of actually playing for a team of the same size or maybe even smaller in Celtic and Benfica. Benfica are massive in Portugal and they're a massive worldwide team. Every young player in South America knows exactly who Benfica are because that can be the stepping stone to go into Europe and becoming a better player. Bernardo's going to have to go at it a different way. He's not going to get game time at Benfica. Yes, he has had first team appearances before, but that was when he was younger. Now he's got to go out and forge his own career at a different club at Celtic, but it's a club that he knows as well. This is the best sort of spot for him to land because he's been here before. He knows how the team works. He knows how the manager works as well. That plus a full pre-season, I think, and I was talking about it with Alan Morrison again yesterday. I think this season could be his breakout season if he joins Celtic. This could be he's had the time to settle down, to become a Celtic player, to know what it means to be a Celtic player, and now this could be the moment that he really comes alive as a fully fledged Celtic player. Looking forward to seeing him donning the hoops once again, Tony, I'll be honest.
yeah, and I think I know you're saying breakout season next season. I get what you mean by that because he'll maybe feature more regularly, but I think he did okay for a guy, coming over and settling into Scottish football, and as you watch Bernardo, and you saw more and more of him, you realised that there's the nucleus of a player there, and I think the manager realised that too. Certain things that he did, and as I say, we've highlighted his kind of show reel for this season. So it's I think it's a great deal if Celtic can get it over the line, and I think it's one the manager's clearly wanting to pursue, and that's my dog's getting excited about that deal as well. That's young Pippa, honest to goodness, but there you go. Can't control what she does, but yes, indeed. So yeah, I'm heartily behind bringing in Paulo Bernardo. I'm excited to see what he could bring, as you say, after a pre-season, and he won't be alone in coming into the club, will he, Ryan?
I don't think he'll be the only midfielder that comes into the club as well. I think there'll be 2 or 3 that come through the door, maybe 4 or 5 that leave the club and go the other way, but it's needed. Celtic play with 3 midfielders, 3 central midfielders, but they've all got a very different role in the team. I don't think Bernardo's going to be necessarily, and I know you don't like to call players the next Matt O'Reilly or the Matt O'Reilly replacement. I don't think he's his like for like swap in the team. He plays as the number 8, so I would say he's more likely to maybe come in place of Rio Hatate in the long term of the club. I think he's more, as Alan Morrison said in his piece that's on the website today, he's more safer. He's more safe than Rio Hatate on the ball. He makes better decisions. Hatate's the risk taker in the team. He's the guy that wants to make things happen. That can sometimes be to Celtic's detriment, especially when they're possession heavy in the Scottish League and they give the ball away. And they've got good opportunities, and he'll give it away even more so in Europe, where if he makes a mistake, then 9 times out of 10 a team's gonna punish you for it, especially if you give them a good space, if you give them good possession and good space. So he seems quite an intelligent guy. Callum McGregor rather wanted them back. That's as good an endorsement as you can get. If Callum McGregor wants to work with you, once again, he says he's keen, he's eager to learn from players like Callum McGregor, Matt O'Reilly. Even though he's round about the same age as Matt O'Reilly, he's still got loads to learn. Learning from Callum McGregor, learning from the other players in and around the team, learning from the defensive players as well as the attacking players for different facets of his game. Learning from the manager. You need somebody like that, and I think Brendan Rodgers likes players that are eager to learn and want to get better. He's a guy that clearly has got his head screwed on. He's a good player to have around the changing room. And yeah, I think there's just so many positives to go with this deal. And for $3.5 million, it's an absolute no-brainer.
If he's listening and learning, then all he has to do is listen to the manager, because he will make him a better player. That's Brendan Rodgers' 40. Yeah,
even the last season with Matt O'Reilly.
Yeah, correct. Right, a few questions coming in, Ryan. We'll get to them. Hazel Finn comes in. Question: do you think if Brendan Rodgers had been at Celtic first, he would have signed Kyogo given the chance? Hazel personally doesn't think so because he doesn't fit into Brendan Rodgers' team tactics, but she's personally pleased that Kyogo is here. Brian, what do you think of that?
I don't think he would have, I'll be honest, because I think it was an Ange Postecoglou signing first and foremost. And
Straight off
when
the
you're
bat.
bringing in a radical manager like Ange Postecoglou, which he was, it's completely different football to the way that Lennon and Kennedy played the season before. Although Kennedy did morph into, Ange Postecoglou's tactics. That's why he was the assistant manager or one of the first team coaches at that point. He was the assistant manager, right? Yeah, he was Ange Postecoglou's number 2. So he needed people. He needed to have trusted lieutenants that could work in the way that the captain or the boss man in Ange Postecoglou could function. And he knows that playing against Kyogo, he knew that he could fit into that play that he wanted, the constant pressure. He knew he had the fitness down to a T. He could probably teach other players on how to be as fit as he was in terms of, the Asian style of playing, the Asian style of football, and the lifestyle that goes along with that. These guys are super fit. Look at Daizen Maeda. You only need to look at him. You only need to look at Ryo Hatate, Kyogo, as well as Tomoki Iwata. They're all really fit young guys. It's just a different culture over there, but it's still incredible, and it's a good standard too. I don't think he would have signed Brendan Rodgers. I don't think Brendan Rodgers would have signed Kyogo just simply due to the fact that that avenue wasn't open there. Ange forced that avenue.
Yeah.
He got a crowbar and opened it up by himself and bringing those players in, bringing Daizen Maeda in. Daizen Maeda was Ange's right-hand man. Everybody knows that. I think even when he joined the club, there was always the murmurings that Daizen Maeda was going to closely follow him because that was his sort of player. It went down to the contract that he couldn't get let go at that point. He was also halfway through a season. But I think everybody had the sneaky suspicion that once Daizen Maeda get linked with the club and the amount of goals that he was scoring in the J League, he would be making his way to Scotland and to Ange Postecoglou Celtic. And that did turn out to be the case alongside Yosuke Ideguchi and Ryo Hatate, obviously. But yeah, I think it's all down to Ange getting that Asian connection, getting that Asian market opened up for Celtic. And I'm still hoping that Celtic can use that market, but at the same time, you want the best players from Asia. You don't want players that could become the best players from Asia, because if that's the case, then I'd much rather they stay in Asia and become the best players before making the move to Scotland, even if you have to pay a bit more money, because then Celtic will feel the benefits of those players in the first team rather than them being projects and maybe costing the team with their performances whilst being a project.
Yeah, it was Andy's local knowledge, wasn't it? I mean, he came in and had a look at what he had at his disposal and knew right away he needed certain things, Kyogo being one of them. And I'm delighted that Kyogo's here as well. I still feel that moving forward, his role will get tweaked or his impact might be less, because I think Brendan Rodgers favours a big, tall striker, strong, powerful striker. But that's not to say that, and I've said before, he's still a man for the big occasion and he'll still produce big goals, and he's a big game player. So, yeah. But would Brendan Rodgers have signed him? Probably not. But that's why every manager's different and they have different styles and play a certain way, don't they? And you got a kind of glimpse of what Brendan Rodgers was about at Rugby Park, Kilmarnock, and in certain games this season when Adam Idah came on and did his thing. And I'm not saying that Adam Idah's going to be the man. I think lots of Celtic supporters would like Adam Idah to be that man that comes in and signs for Celtic, be that big, powerful unit up front and an attacking option. But Kyogo's still got a vital role to play moving forward. It just might be slightly different in a Brendan Rodgers team. And I think that's fair comment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. He's still a vital cog in this Brendan Rodgers machine that used to be Ange Postecoglou's machine. It just so happened that he was the most important part of Ange Postecoglou's machine, and now things have changed ever so slightly. Yes, he's the joint top goal scorer, but even looking at who he shared that award with at the end of the season, I think it goes to show you the movement of where goals are distributed. Now all of a sudden, Matt O'Reilly, who wasn't really expected to score a lot of goals in Ange Postecoglou's side. I know he did score a few, but that was never his forte. Now it is. Now that's what he's relied upon to do. He's relied to make up for the shortcomings of probably the wingers not getting enough goals, and that's maybe an area for Celtic to pursue this summer, getting wingers that can actually score goals. I know we've got people in the comments talking about Palma, and I do agree that he had a good season numbers-wise, but in the long run, his performances were not consistent over the full season. If his performances were consistent over the full season, he'd honestly be sitting on 30 goals and about 20 assists
I
because
also,
he's got that in him. And I think the wingers just need to score more goals, is what I would say, and they need
well,
to take the load off the strikers.
to be fair as well, I think Kyogo suffered because of the wingers this season, the lack of quality ball to him. He was starved in a lot of games of service. We've highlighted that people were saying he kicked the ball twice and 4 times in the first half, stuff like that. But a lot of that was due to the fact that the wingers just weren't delivering to him and playing to his strengths. I've said before, Brendan Rodgers likes his strikers to play with their back to goal as well and link up the play. It's not really Kyogo's forte. Kyogo's a better striker when he's facing the opposition goal. That's where he causes the most danger. And he was still making those intelligent runs, i.e. like the one Matt Riley spotted against Hearts. It's a brilliant goal. And I think something has to be done about the wingers as well. We have to make them more productive and have to play to Kyogo's strength whenever Kyogo leads the line. And I think it was noticeable. He got 20 goals in his first season, got 34 last season, 19 this season, the same as Matt O'Reilly. So there was a disconnect on the park there when it came to Kyogo. I think everybody can see that. And a lot of that was down to the service that he was getting or not getting, which rendered him sometimes largely anonymous in games. Not through the lack of trying or not through the lack of doing what he normally does with those near post runs and, trademark stuff, but he just wasn't found. And that's why he's still got a huge role to play going forward in Celtic's team. But I think Brendan Rodgers is the classic horses for courses manager, and there are games which will be suited to Kyogo next season where he'll lead the line, and there are games when another will lead the line, whoever that may be, big striker that comes in. If that's Adam Eder, so be it. It might be someone else. People saying it might well be Odsonne Edouard as well. Keep your eyes on that, Ryan, on the website. That's what we're saying on that one.
Yeah, I think we've had a healthy debate on that. That'll be going out tomorrow. Looking at Edward's wages or his presumed wages, he'd have to take a significant cut if he wanted to come back to Celtic, as would most players that are making the move from England upwards, especially from the Premier League up to the Scottish League. They're going to have to take a cut in their pay. But what Celtic can offer for Edouard probably, and it's all hypothetical at this moment. I know people have still got the perception of him that he down tools, etc. He still scored 20 odd goals that season. He was the top goal scorer. If he just by that token, by that example, if he hadn't have down tools, would he be on 40, 50 goals for the season? It was a mess by all involved. You could go as far to say that other people down tools because they didn't deliver in the big season by that argument. So I think it's unfair to label him being the single person that down tools when it was other players that were struggling too. Would I welcome a reunion between Celtic and Edouard, especially as he's coming into the prime of his career at 26 years old, when Celtic are playing more games in the Champions League than ever before? Absolutely, because he's a player that I know can rise to that level. I think there's bridges that haven't necessarily been burnt, but in terms of rebuilding them and re-solidifying them, if Edouard was to come for a couple of years and really announce himself once again, I would absolutely love that. I don't know about you. I know you're
Well,
in the Ida boat, you're in the Ida
yeah,
Express, but
just about to say it,
Edouard in this team, Edouard under Brendan Rodgers is a dream.
ladies and gentlemen, if me and Ryan have did an Ida versus Edouard for the website, then you know who Ryan is in favour of and you'll know who I'm in favour of. So keep your eyes peeled on the website because I think there's an article going up. When's it going up, Ryan? Saturday, is it?
Tomorrow at 6 a.m.
Tomorrow at 6 a.m. Okay, there you go. We kind of follow there and let you know what's going on the website. Yeah. Ida versus Edouard. We both made the case for our particular choices. You'll enjoy that. It's good fun.
Somebody in the comments, Pete McGee, says the only ex-Celtic to have back is Jota. If you were to ask me one player to come back right now, if you could give me any former Celtic player to come back that's realistic, because I think everybody would take Virgil van Dijk, even though he's 31, 32 and at Liverpool. Imagine Carter Vickers and Virgil van Dijk. Would we ever concede a goal again? I'm not so sure, especially from a corner. But in terms of realistic ones, and I know the wages can be a concern, but if he wanted to make the move back, if all of a sudden he's made his money and he wants to move back to a place that he knows that he'll get game time, he'll be one of the first names on the team sheet every single week. Could you imagine Jota and a Brendan Rodgers team? Now is the time. It's pre-season or it's before pre-season, so now is the time to be hypothetical and dream about things like this. But imagine Jota being improved under Brendan Rodgers. He was one of the players that I was most looking forward to Brendan Rodgers working under, because I've seen what he can do to players like Scott Sinclair and revitalising a career. Think about Jota. Jota had it all.
Could you imagine Jota supplying Kyogo once again and an Adamida type? There you go. It's yeah. Are we talking about players that are currently playing who we would want back? Is that the case?
Yeah. Yes. I think you'll probably say Tierney as well.
That'd probably be Jota, wouldn't it? It just depends. Kind of recency bias kicks in, doesn't it? Now, Paul Byrne comes in and he's saying, given what Celtic have in the bank, Champions League money, players leaving, etc., what total transfer figure would you deem to be acceptable for the board to spend this summer? Tricky one, but what do you think, Ryan?
This is the interesting part, because as much as numbers are great to see, I'd much rather see the players actually deliver on the park rather than Celtic delivering in terms of transfer fees, because it's all about the fit of the team. I know that was a very political answer to a question, but somewhere along the lines of now Celtic are getting around about 60 million from the Champions League for everything all in. I'd be looking for Celtic to spend half of that on recruitment in order to do themselves justice in the Champions League. There's other teams that are spending more, but that's always going to be the case just due to their better league deal, due to the opposition that they play against more regularly than Celtic, because Celtic are only playing against elite opposition 8 times, and then depending on what Rangers you come up against, that can be a Europa League / Champions League level game as well. Depends on how they're doing in the season. I know people might not want to hear that, but that's the top game in Scotland, and it's a game in which Celtic need good players in order to manoeuvre, because Rangers will be reinforcing and trying to bring in players in order to do the very same thing. Could so happen that both teams are in the Champions League this season if Rangers navigate through the qualifiers. If not, then it's the Europa League. But it's the same amount of games. This is the great thing about the Champions League, Europa League and the Conference League, is the fact that every team is playing in this Swiss model now. They're all playing in the 8 games. So it's very fair in terms of the load that every team has. It's just the opposition that changes. Yeah. So that'll be interesting. But I'd expect Celtic to spend 30-35 million this summer, given with the players that are going to be leaving the club. We all expect Matt O'Reilly to leave the club in the summer. I think it'd be amazing if he stayed, but I think he's going to leave. So I would say, they'll make that money. They'll make that money on Matt O'Reilly. So reinvest in the team. Speculate to accumulate is the word or the phrase that we were all talking about last season. If you bring in good players, then more often than not, you'll be able to sell those good players for higher fees a couple of years down the line. Because these teams are watching, and they're watching the Champions League. The better that Celtic get in the Champions League, the more money they can attract for players that are doing well at that level, because they've shown that they can play at that level. So 30 million minimum, and try and get the best possible players through the door.
My thoughts are in terms of how much, because you could pick a number, any number, because Celtic are cash rich. It's the quality that you want now. The manager has banged on about it since he came in. It's the quality that you're bringing in for the money that you're spending. Now, we've said before, Celtic can afford to loosen the purse strings, but within their financial parameters. We're not saying be financially reckless, but if you're going out to sign, say, 6 million, £7 million players, which is well within their financial parameters, they have to be difference makers, Ryan. They have to be quality. They cannot be taking a punt on £7-8 million players. We were talking about earlier in the week that it's time to kind of ditch the project mentality for a season at least and have a rip at this new Champions League format by bringing in the quality that the manager craves and that the manager has proven that he deserves. So that would be my... So it doesn't really matter what figure you put on it, 30, 40, 50, 60 million. You could put any kind of figure on it. They just need to, whatever they do, whatever they're investing and spending, they have to spend it wisely, do their due diligence on the players that they're bringing in, but bring in that quality. And I think everybody knows the positions that we need quality in. A goalkeeper, a left back, another midfielder, a striker, and you could argue that they need a quality winger as well. So there's, correct, but maybe he wants to work with a couple of the ones that he's got at his disposal in the close season, see if he can make them turn their numbers better, providing and scoring. But so there's 5 players. They'll cost money if you're aiming at bringing in quality. So if you're doing simple maths, 5 players at 6-7 million, then you're spending upwards of guts of 30 to 35 million anyway, if you want to put a figure on it. But I think in order for Celtic to be competitive in the Champions League and not just play in it, then that's the kind of sums of money that you would be thinking that they would have to spend, because those quality players coming in alone, again, that's not allowing for players to leave. I'm not convinced that Matt O'Reilly's certainly going to leave at this minute in time. Ask me further down the line in the transfer window, but I think the manager could possibly talk him into staying for another year, because he ain't going to get 8 games in the Champions League. Well, he might if he goes to Atletico Madrid, if that interest is still
into Milan as well,
bubbling away into Milan, I suppose. Right, fair enough, but I still think that it's still a healthy financial outlay for them, because Celtic will command top dollar for Matt O'Reilly, won't they? They'll want the guts of 30 million for him, won't they? And they're perfectly entitled to ask for that. And I don't know if the likes of Inter Milan or Atletico Madrid are prepared to pay that for a player who's playing their trade in the Scottish Premiership. But Celtic should hold out for that. So there's hope for me that they might be able to hold on to him longer.
Mm-hmm. I think this is where, international football can, sometimes show its different policies or politics in which, players can go on loan with an obligation to buy. I don't see Celtic going down that road. I think Celtic are a club that need the money straight up. I've got no doubt that these teams do have the money to give Celtic, but you just see that sometimes, particularly in Italy and Germany, etc., that these players can sometimes be brought in initially on loan, but with that obligation to buy. We've seen it recently with Celtic too, players like Daizen Maeda and Tomoki Iwata, but they're less signings because you're only spending $500,000, 1 million, 1.5 million. It's big money usually involved in these moves for players. You see it. You've seen it in years gone by. A player is worth as much as a team is willing to pay. And I don't necessarily like the argument people say, oh, he's not worth that, he's not worth that. If a team is willing to pay that, then that's what he's worth, because that's the worth that's been set by the team, and that's been the money that's been put up by the team that's willing to pay for him. So I remember the argument being a couple of years ago that Jack Grealish isn't worth 100 million. Well, funnily enough, he is worth 100 million because Man City paid 100 million to pry him from Aston Villa's clutches. It's just as much as it's as much as the team is willing to pay. That's his valuation. You can disagree with that valuation, but at the same time, if you're going to pay for it, then that's justified, putting that price tag. So I think that Celtic should be charging 25, 30 million for Matt O'Reilly, because the moment he steps on either Italian soil or Premier League soil, he'll be worth, 40, 50 million if he keeps up the same trajectory.
Price almost doubles, doesn't it? So,
and he won't improve as a player that much. Like Van Dijk, I know Van Dijk did improve by playing against quality defenders every week, but he was doing the same sorts of things. He was doing the same sorts of things up in Scotland. Just so happened he had that exposure to playing against tougher strikers, tougher midfielders as well, and wingers as well, that his value increased from, I think Celtic sold him for 12, 15 million, round about that ballpark, alongside Wanyama. It was round about the same price, both to Southampton. He then was sold to Liverpool for 75 million, I think was a record at that point in time. So it's up to Celtic to drive that price up. with inflation, they've got every right to as well, because everything's going up in price. So Celtic's valuation of strikers and players in general should be going up because of that. I just want to see the Celtic team get a pretty penny for players in which they deserve before the other teams, the teams that get these players, then sell on the players to other teams and they'll get even more. I want Celtic to be getting part of that. And I'd also want a sell-on included in Matt O'Reilly, just so that they're still getting rewarded for his continual development down the road, because he will be going to higher places than his next move, in my opinion, anyway.
I still think the manager's trying to build something, and Matt O'Reilly's part of that. I could be wrong, and I know you have to jump on that train when it comes, and people are saying that it's time for Matt O'Reilly to jump on that train, but I'm not convinced as of yet that he's certainly for the off. Am I resigning myself to the fact that he might be off? I guess possibly, but I still kind of hold out hope that he might want to work with the manager for at least another year and see where it takes him. But I guess the fact that he didn't get called up for the Danish squad was a blow to him, and he might see that fact that that's an impediment to, he's missed at this moment in time, he's missing a major tournament. He might think that playing Scottish football but Scottish football has also turned him into the player that he has become. So, it's balancing it up, isn't it? Now, other questions and comments coming in. Tony Clark saying Bernardo need a question mark. Will Celtic be buying bench warmers or straight into the team? Well, you have to say that if Celtic are buying them, Rodgers is pursuing them, then he's going to put them straight into the team, isn't he? That's your assumption. Certainly my assumption. Why else would he want to play? No. Why else would he pursue an interest in them and not play them in the team? It doesn't make any sense to me, because you don't have to go out and sign them. But I think he's bringing them in, or wants to bring them in, because they're tried and tested and they know the Scottish game, they know the terrain, and they can then make a even more valid contribution next season, Ryan. That's what I think the manager will be thinking, certainly.
Yeah. The thing is, these players won't stand still as well. They will get better and they'll improve. And that's what Brendan Rodgers has seen. If he's allowing the club or asking the club to go out and buy these players permanently, is because he sees enough in their game that he can improve tenfold, or they can improve tenfold, and he can improve them in the process, both as human beings as well as football players, which is what Brendan Rodgers is good at. His man management is one of the reasons why he's back at the club in the first place, I would say, because Celtic have got a good squad, a good group of players and a good group of people, and he can work alongside them. And it's clearly a good place to work, which is why players like Ida and Bernardo are desperate to come back in the first place. With the way that the squad will evolve, they won't be bench warmers, because they'll just take that natural next step, and from the bench they'll then become starters. Also, if they sign permanently, it means that there's more of a loyalty to play these players, as they're not on loan. They're Celtic's own players, and they've shelled out actual money to play them, which means that they'll be expecting game time. They'll have talked about that before they even joined the club, because it's a big decision to move from, maybe not as big a decision to move from England to Scotland, but from moving to Portugal to Scotland and move there permanently. They'll want assurances that they're going to get game time, especially if they're going to sign permanently. Otherwise, why would they sign? Would they not look for a club that's maybe lesser, but they'll get more game time?
Yeah.
So those assurances will be made to them. And I don't think they'll be bench warmers. I think they'll be first team players for sure.
I also think that phrase bench warmers is a bit disparaging and disrespectful to both players, because they've made a real valid contribution.
They've not warmed the bench because they've made impact off the bench.
And remember, the previous manager, Ange Postecoglou, said that, there's a starting team and there's a finishing team. And however many minutes you get, it's valuable. Every minute you clock up as a Celtic player is valuable. So I find phrases like bench warmers, and it's someone's opinion, and I get that, that's fine, but I just think it's hugely disrespectful and disingenuous to two guys who've made a considerable contribution to Celtic's season. I think Celtic won the Scottish Cup with those two guys coming off the bench and impacting the game at a critical moment, and gave everybody the smile on their faces that's lasting through the summer. So, and I get where the contributor and commenter is coming from, but I think, I don't know, I just have a wee bit of a problem accepting that comment in relation to those two players, because I think they've been more than bench warmers this season. I think every Celtic supporter, or most Celtic supporters, would agree with that. And the manager's pursuing them because he sees them more than just, impact players for the up and coming season. And as you say, conversations will have been had, and I said it earlier in the week, that they'll have been told, go back to your parent clubs, we'll sort this out, just leave it to us. And I think the messages coming from the players is they want to return. And if they're saying they want to return, then they want to return because they feel loved and they feel wanted by their fellow players, by the manager that they're playing under, and certainly by the Celtic supporters. And these guys are tried and tested and know everything about the club. And I think moving forward, the manager thinks it's a big box ticker for him, because you won't need to introduce too much to them. All you have to do is just improve their numbers, improve their performances, and make them, and they will become starters, automatic starters. So that's just my thoughts, So
they bring a boost. They bring a boost because they're new signings through the door, but they also bring familiarity, which is great because the players all know, and by all accounts, when you hear about both of the players, they've both been accepted into the group with open arms. I've noticed when you're looking at Adam Ida pictures, he's always celebrating with the team. It seems to be quite close with James Forrest as well, despite there being a bit of a 10-year age difference between the two, which is quite mental to say with James Forrest. Still not used to the fact that James Forrest is one of the more experienced players in the team, but
we've got a good relationship. We've got a good relationship, and there's like a quarter of a century age gap between us. So
double,
right?
But just in terms of professionals playing the game, playing on the pitch, it's good to see that he's acclimatised very well. And the same for Bernardo. The fact that he's captain is so eager for him to stay at the club. It's brilliant to see. It just shows you that there's been a real effort on both sides. One from Callum McGregor to assimilate the player into the group, into the team, and Paulo Bernardo to make himself as homely and as welcome as possible in the group. So that it takes two to tango in this, and it's great to see that both sides have worked well on that. The fact that it looks as if he'll be Celtic's first signing is great. I think a full pre-season will be the making of this player. The same for a couple of other players. Some players are already at the club. I think we'll see real differences in the team. I include Palma, include Kuhn in that as well. Full pre-season going away with Celtic, going away to America, could be the making of these players in the long run. And if it isn't, then we know that they've tried, and we know that they've tried to make it happen. But big summer coming up. Hopefully, a well-earned rest for some of the players. For some of the players, not so much a well-earned rest because of the Euros and the fact that they haven't really stopped. But I'm expecting reinforcements this summer, and I'm expecting Celtic to get stronger ahead of next season under Brendan Rodgers.
710 people joining us, Ryan. That's colossal live. Thank you, guys. Joining us when there's supposedly nothing to talk about. There's never nothing to talk about when you're talking about
They've
Celtic.
They've had something to talk about, and that's the difference.
What's that?
They've had something to talk about, and they've brought it to us. Now we've got something to talk about. So that's great to see.
So thank you for your questions and your comments. We shall bid you farewell. Hamish will be back tomorrow. He's in the air, and he'll be on, as we say, Celtic part-time tomorrow, Ryan. He won't be in Australia. He'll be back in good old Scotland, talking to us from wherever he's based in Scotland. So that'll be good fun to see him back on the briefing tomorrow.
See somebody in the comments, sorry, just quickly, somebody's actually watching in Menorca, sitting by the pool on the hotel Wi-Fi, watching in Menorca. Now, if that is not dedication, I don't know what is. But
that's making me jealous.
I wish I had something like that back when I was trying to follow Celtic, and I remember when I used to follow. Well, I've always followed Celtic, but when you used to follow Celtic and your source of news was the newspaper, and especially when you went on holiday, and you'd have to pay for a more expensive version of, say, for example, the Daily Record. So you might have been in that at that point, and I was reading the transfer stories and stuff like that. But that's how you got your updates before everybody had like iPod touches and iPhones and such easy access to the internet. So it just goes to show you how things have changed. But it's so good that we've still got this platform to talk about transfers that are happening daily rather than waiting for the latest bit of news to come through.
No such thing as exclusives anymore, Ryan. It's just out there. As soon as something's known, it's out there, isn't it? Whatever social media channel it's the news is put on, there you go. But whatever social media channel you've been watching today, thank you guys. Really appreciate it. It's been a while since I've presented one of these, Ryan. So there you go. It's like riding a bike, isn't it? You just get into the habit of it again. But there you have it. But yes. Enjoyed that today, guys. So thank you for your contributions. Always appreciate it. It's never good morning for a very hot drink. Cheers, Peter. Thank you for that. My good friend from school is Peter. Yes, indeed. These people in the sun, Ryan. It's kind of damp in East Kilbride. Don't know what it is where you are, but
cloudy, right. But dry for the moment.
But we'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully, might get some signing news, Ryan.
Fingers crossed. It'd be a good start to the weekend if that was the case. If Paulo Bernardo was announced as a Celtic player, maybe some more movement as well in other fronts, because Celtic do need a goalkeeper. And we haven't really talked about, I think this is the first podcast that we haven't talked about a goalkeeper at length, which is good because it was Groundhog Day for too many days. This will be the day. This will be the day that a proper link is made between, and we've not spoke about a goalkeeper. It's just our luck.
Well, David De Gea is making the headlines again, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
David De
Gea.
Gea.
It's going to take out a mortgage.
I think they've been blown the whole budget. You know what I mean? So it's
next 3 budgets in terms of wages, probably, if that's the case. I know he's not played for a season. He was on like something like 375k a week at Man United at one point.
It's needless to say he would have to take a considerable wage cut if he was ever to come to Celtic. But stranger things have happened, guys. We shall wait and see what's going on. But thank you for your company today. Really enjoyed it. Cheers, Ryan, for yours. And guys, just before we go, you see the strap running along the bottom. Help us grow the channel. Subscribe to the Celtic Way website for 6 months of access. It's £4 for 4 months of top quality journalism covering the club you love. Visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. We say thank you to MPH Boilers and Weissman. And remember, they're opening the store in Dunfermline. Get yourself in the draw for a trip to Vegas and a helicopter tour. If you can respond now at www.launch.mph.group, you can secure your spot. And they're opening the showroom, new kitchen showroom in Dunfermline from June the 14th to the 16th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So get involved in that and get involved in everything on the website, guys. Have a read at that, what's on there. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Take care.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.